Review Committee. This meeting is now called to order at 10:03 a.m. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will proceed with the roll call in alphabetical order by member agency. Ted Wolf. Audra Merrick.
I'm here, thanks.
Thank you. Raj Thowdam. Scott Zipprich. CJ DiMaggio.
Present.
Thank you. Hal Marin. Vice Chair Crampton.
Here.
Thank you. Bryce Christo as proxy for Jorge Gastelum.
Here.
Thank you. Romer Truly.
Here.
Thank you. Adam Smith as proxy for Christopher Salas.
Present.
Thank you. David Janover.
Present.
Thank you. Jason Hafner.
Here.
Thank you. Prab Adabala as proxy for, Prab Adabala, Glendale.
Here.
Steve Sinto.
Present.
Thank you. Amanda Nelson.
Present.
Thank you. Keith Dranaski.
I'm here.
Thank you. Scott Nodes. Chair Wilcox.
Present.
Thank you. Eric Guderian as proxy for City of Mesa.
Here.
Thank you. Shar Johnson. Brandy Kelso.
Here.
Thank you. Christopher Wanamaker. Julian Dresang as proxy for Mohammed Yusuf.
Present.
Thank you. Nathan Domi as proxy for Mark Melanchenko.
Present.
Thank you. Stephen Chang as proxy for Eric Bowles.
Here.
Thank you. Shelley Seiler.
Present.
Thank you. Chris Hamilton.
Here.
Thank you. Robert Forrest as proxy for Trevor Collin.
Here.
Thank you. Herschel Workman. And Grant Anderson. Mr. Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you. Our next item is the call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda, informational items, or items on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience unless the chair requests an exception to this limit. I have received no request to speak for the call to the audience. MAG also provides the opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website. Any comments received 2 hours prior to the meeting have been shared with the committee members in advance of the meeting for consideration and will be included in the formal meeting minutes. Staff, have we received any online written comments for the call to the audience?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have not received any online written comments for the call to the audience.
Thank you. Our next item is the MAG staff report. Patrick Stone, MAG Deputy Transportation Director for Programming, will provide the report.
Thank you, Chair Wilcox, members of the Transportation Review Committee. A pleasure to be here today to present this report. Unfortunately, I'm going to start off with a little bit of a sad item. I want to take a moment to remember RJ Zeter from the City of Mesa, past chair of this committee, who passed away earlier this month. He was a true public servant, a champion for transportation. He'll be sorely missed. So just take a moment to recognize RJ. Thank you. Moving on, some committee agenda household items. Want to recognize our new vice chair, Jason Crampton from the City of Chandler. Thank you, Jason, for agreeing to step up, assist the committee. Look forward to working with you. Also want to recognize to my right, Mr. Prab Adabala from the City of Glendale, now representing the city on this committee. Moving on, financial report update. RARF numbers did not have the updated numbers yet for February. I'll be sure to share those next month at our next committee meeting. HERF numbers for the month of February, up slightly over last year, just under 1%, a little under the forecast, but trending exactly where we would expect. And also want to kind of flag an item based on regional council action yesterday. The 2 new arterial competitive programs have been approved. The policies and procedures were approved by regional council yesterday. That means we will have a call for projects for those 2 programs going out tomorrow. $150 million in funding available over fiscal years 26, 27, and 28. Those projects, the ranking and funding scenario, will be coming before this committee in May for consideration and approval. And with that, Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Patrick. If members have any questions, please contact Patrick after the meeting. Item number 4 is for informational items. There are no information items on the agenda, so we can proceed to agenda item number 5, approval of the consent agenda. Items 5A and 5B are on the consent agenda. Does any member of the committee have any questions or request a presentation on any of these items? Hearing none, prior to approval of the consent agenda, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any item on the consent agenda. I have received no requests for the consent agenda. Staff, have we received any online written comments for the consent agenda?
Thank you, Chair. We have not received any online written comments for the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items 5A and 5B?
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Can I obtain a second, please?
Second.
Second.
Who is the second, Gary?
David Janover.
David?
Janover.
Very good. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
We will have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. We need to see the faces of everyone to participate in the voice vote. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, staff will conduct a roll call vote. Staff will only call on those virtual participants who did not turn on their cameras. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote so that staff can count the people's names whose cameras are not on. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call vote of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their camera?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Andy Smith, how do you vote? Andy Smith, how do you vote?
Sorry.
Mr. Chair, the passes.
Thank you. Well, moving on to item number 6, the fiscal year 2025 Arterial Life Cycle Program Federal Fund Advancement. This item is on the agenda for recommended approval and will be presented by Carrie Kassler, MAG Transportation Planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, members of TRC. Today I'll be presenting on the fiscal year 25 ALCP Federal Fund Advancement. So this process was approved by MAG Regional Council in October of 2023. As you may know, federal funds are on a use or lose basis. Therefore, this process provides an opportunity for agencies to bring federal funds back into the ALCP from the unfunded portion, also known as Phase 5. So all projects in the federal fund advancement must be federally eligible and be able to obligate in the current fiscal year. So here's some background and overview of the milestones of Phase 5 funding. In 2005, there we go. The first ALCP was approved, and Phase 5 was not yet an element of the ALCP. Then after the recession, there was an ALCP rebalance that moved $22.4 million out of the program and into Phase 5, which was then created and became the unfunded portion of the ALCP. There was a second ALCP rebalance in 2012, and that moved even more money out of the ALCP, as well as a third rebalance in 2021 that moved $100 million back into the program. So the requests for applications were sent out in February, and we received one request by the deadline. This request came from the city of Chandler. I'll provide some background on their project. So this is for their project on Lindsay Road, Ocotillo to Hunt Highway. This is anticipated to obligate in May of this year, and this project will widen the roadway as well as include other improvements such as turn lanes, bike lanes, curb and gutter, and so on. So this request was for $6.6 million. Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation. Action requested is on the screen. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Carrie. Do any members have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, not a question, but just a comment. Thank you, MAG staff, for all the assistance with this process. You made it very easy and helped us to define the exact amounts of our request and all the information that we needed. So appreciate you with that.
Prior to voting, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment. I have received no request for this agenda item. Staff, have we received any online written comments for this agenda item?
Mr. Chair, we have not received any online written comments for this item.
Is there a motion to recommend approval of the proposed FY 2025 federal fund advancement funding scenario and associated amendments?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Jason. Can I obtain a second, please?
I'll second that.
Oh, thank you, Rob. We will have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call vote of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their cameras?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nathan Domi, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. And Brandy Kelso, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. So we'll move on to item number 7, Rio East Dobson Streetcar Transit Extension Project, locally preferred alternative. This item is on the agenda for recommended approval and will be presented by Hannah Quinsley, MEG Transportation.
Thank you. And good afternoon, Chair Wilcox and members of the Transportation Review Committee. Pleased to be here this morning to present the locally preferred alternative for the Rio East Dobson Streetcar Extension Project for action. This project is listed in MAG's Momentum 2050 Regional Transportation Plan and the Regional Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Investment Plan, otherwise known as the RSTIP, list of future high-capacity transit projects. This project will provide a high-capacity transit option to improve transit access and connectivity in the cities of Tempe and Mesa, and will help address projected growth and population and employment in the East Valley. This project will extend a streetcar from its current terminus at Marina Heights in the city of Tempe and will connect residents to employment, activity centers, and regional destinations in the East Valley, which include the Mountain America Stadium at Arizona State University and Tempe Marketplace in the city of Tempe, Sloan Park, Riverview Park, Mesa Riverview, and the Asian District in the city of Mesa, as well as future developments like the South Pier and Novus Innovation Corridor in the city of Tempe. The first step in the development process for a high-capacity transit capital project is the initial. As part of this process, a study is conducted to look at a range of reasonable multimodal alternatives, as well as general alignment options. At the conclusion of the alternatives analysis, a locally preferred alternative, or LP, is identified. The Rio East Dobson Extension LPA originated from 2 separate but related studies, the Tempe Mesa Streetcar Feasibility Study and the Fiesta District Alternatives Analysis. The feasibility study was completed in July of 2020 by Valley Metro in collaboration with the cities of Tempe and Mesa, and identified new potential streetcar corridors that could serve as extensions to the streetcar in Tempe. The alternatives analysis was completed in June of 2020 by Valley Metro and the city of Mesa in coordination with MAG. The Fiesta District Alternatives Analysis Study and the Tempe Mesa Streetcar Feasibility Study each developed a two-tier multi-criteria analysis to identify, evaluate, and rank a total of 24 potential corridors for high-capacity transit investment using criteria that included ridership forecasting, right-of-way impacts, and economic development potential, cost estimates, and public support for the various options. The feasibility study identified 5 new potential streetcar corridors in Tempe and Mesa, and the alternatives analysis evaluated multiple high-capacity transit corridors in West Mesa, including light rail, streetcar, and enhanced bus service. The outcome of these studies was the identification of a single high-capacity transit corridor with streetcar determined as the preferred mode. In 2023, the cities of Mesa and Tempe entered into a cooperative funding agreement with Valley Metro to build onto these studies, to select an LPA, and to commence preliminary design work focusing on different operational configurations for the alignment. The LPA, as shown on your screen, is a 4.4-mile streetcar extension along Rio Salado Parkway traveling east from the current streetcar terminus at Marina Heights in the city of Tempe to Dobson Road, traveling south on Dobson Road, and terminating at Main Street in the city of Mesa. To ensure that the final recommended alternative reflected community desires as the project advanced toward an LPA, Valley Metro and the cities of Tempe and Mesa conducted community involvement activities through the feasibility study and alternatives analysis efforts from the fall of 2018 to early 2020. The feasibility study project team presented project updates at 27 local board and commission meetings in the cities of Tempe and Mesa. And the alternatives analysis team in the city of Mesa included targeted individual meetings with business and commercial property owners, as well as 2 public meetings and 2 online surveys that received a total of 153 responses. The preliminary estimated capital cost for the project, as stated in MAG's RSTIP, is $403 million and will be funded through local funds, regional federal formula funding, and the Federal Transit Administration Capital Investment Grant Program. Valley Metro, in coordination with the cities of Tempe and Mesa, are currently working on updating these capital costs as part of the implementation efforts for the RSTIP. The source of annual operating costs will be shared by the cities of Mesa and Tempe, as well as farebox revenues. And I just wanted to note that no regional sales tax funds will be used to construct or operate this project. The Rio East Dobson Streetcar Extension Project LPA was adopted by the Mesa City Council on December 9th, 2024, the Tempe City Council on December 19th, 2024, and the Valley Metro Rail Board on January 23rd, 2025. Preliminary engineering is planned to begin this year, and the next stages of the project will develop more community outreach and initial design and engineering work that will establish guideway and street configuration, stop locations, and will refine the capital cost estimate. The open to service timeframe for this project is tentatively planned for the RSTIP Phase 2, which is fiscal year 2031 to 2035. LPAs must be approved by MAG for required air quality conformity analysis and inclusion in the Momentum 2050 MAG Regional Transportation Plan, which brings us to the action before you today. Chair Wilcox and members of the Transportation Review Committee, this concludes my presentation. The action listed before you is to recommend approval of the locally preferred alternative for the Rio East Dobson Streetcar Transit Extension Project and its inclusion in the Momentum 2050 MAG Regional Transportation Plan, contingent on a finding of air quality conformity. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions the committee may have alongside Valley Metro staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Do any members have any questions or comments of Hannah on this agenda item?
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. Hannah, has the project applied for competitive federal funds yet, or is that something they plan to do over the next few years, or what's the timeline for opportunities for competitive?
The project hasn't entered into the FTA Capital Investment Grant Program, and to speak to that schedule, I'm going to defer to Robert Forrest.
Thank you, Chair Wilcox. Jason, yes, we're, as Hannah pointed out, we're not in that phase yet. Our next steps are to hopefully we get the RAISE grant that we had applied for, so we're still waiting to hear back from that. That will allow us to move forward with preliminary engineering and environmental work. During that phase, which will probably be about a year and a half from now, we'll probably at that point go ahead and request entry into project development with the FTA's CIG program.
Are there any additional comments of Hannah on this agenda item? Hearing none, prior to voting, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment. I've received no requests for this agenda item. Staff, have we received any online written comments for this agenda item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have not received any online written comments for this item.
With that, is there a motion to recommend approval of the locally preferred alternative for the Rio East Dobson Streetcar Transit Extension Project and inclusion in the Momentum 2050 MAG Regional Transportation Plan contingent on a finding of air quality conformity?
So moved.
Moved by Robert.
Second.
Who provided the second?
Eric Gadarian from City of Mesa.
Very good. Thank you, Eric. We will have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. Members, please leave your cameras on until after the roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call vote of the members participating virtually and who did not turn on their camera?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Everyone had their cameras on. Great job. And the motion passes.
Very good. Thank you. Now moving on to item number 8, Arizona Department of Transportation Wrong Way Vehicle Detection Program Update. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Ryan Gish, MAG RCN Program Manager, and Kevin Doobie, ADOT's ITS Technology and Data Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Not on this whole time. Sorry about that. I'll start back over. Good morning, Chair and members of TRC. I'll be introducing our speaker today, Kevin Doobie from ADOT, to present on ADOT's Wrong Way Vehicle Detection Program. To give a brief background, on June 2017, the MAG Regional Council approved a pilot project for the Wrong Way Vehicle Detection System along a 15-mile segment of Interstate 17, incorporating several various technologies and to warn drivers and notify law enforcement. ADOT's evaluation of the pilot revealed the system's success and highlighted the need to expand the use of thermal cameras and illuminated wrong way signs across other highways in Arizona. Then in March of 2022, the MAG Regional Council approved expanding the system to cover a section along State Route 202 near Tempe. And then from that approval and expansion, ADOT has continued to grow the system and is included as part of future construction projects and also roadway improvements. This presentation will provide an update on the progress of the ongoing wrong way vehicle detection projects and system developments. And with that, I introduce Mr. Kevin Doobie.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, to be here today. Appreciate it. Just jump right into it here. So ADOT's wrong way detection system, I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of a background on it. So it's not just an Arizona issue, it is a nationwide issue. We did at ADOT, we did like 11-year analysis of wrong way crashes in Arizona, and it showed that 25% of all wrong way crashes resulted in fatalities, compared to 1% fatality rates on crashes occurring on divided highways. We did do an approved pilot project on the wrong way vehicle detection systems piloted on a 15-mile stretch on I-17, and that was between the I-10 and the Loop 101 on the Agua Fria River itself. So the wrong way detection system uses, again, thermal cameras that we have utilized out there for wrong way for the vehicles. We also have those along the exit ramps and other potential points of entry into the freeway and main lines. The video footage generates the camera to allow ADOT dispatchers and ADOT public safety troopers that are actually stationed within our TOC to see the video if there is a wrong way detection person that occurs, an incursion. Enhanced warning signs, we've actually done that as well. So we've lowered the signs on the actual on ramp or the off ramps there, so we can get the attention of the wrong way driver. And we've actually made them bigger as well. Along with do not enter signs were installed as part of the I-17 pilot project, and illuminated wrong way signs flashing red LEDs around the borders as well. The I-17 corridor pilot was a total, we were able to see a total of 109 wrong way vehicle incursions during the pilot, and identified the pilot, it was identified within the pilot limits. Out of 88% of the drivers, which they did self-correct as well, out of the 12% of incursions, only one resulted in a wrong way vehicle injury crash. ADOT found overall that the system components worked well together and performed as intended. This is a great example. If you're kind of a setup that we have along the highway, we have thermal cameras on the ramp, and then the wrong way, of course, to help the wrong way driver. And then if they get past if they do not self-correct, then they end up on the wrong way on the actual main line. Then we actually have DMS signs that light up and will inform traveling public that are actually going in the right way that there is a wrong way vehicle coming. We actually have ramp meters as well. So those ramp meters will be deployed and they will stay red. So in hopes that the people don't continue on to the freeway system itself. Some of the results is expansion of the wrong way detection system. So the components identified throughout the several corridors of the regional freeway system. We in addition, wrong way detection also has been included in scope of items in several projects funded through the Freeway Lifecycle program that we have. I think a good example of this is the brand new Broadway curb project. We have wrong way detection on there as well. Detection expansion. So from the I-17, we're able to expand, and we have existing wrong ways along the I-17. We expanded up north past the Agua Fria River. We do have some on the 303, I-10, 202, as you can see throughout the valley. And then we do have several planned since it's been a successful program overall. Those include current and future ADOT projects. We do plan on having ramp detection along with mainline detection as well. This is another picture, essentially showing that the thermal cameras, where we place them, the detection zone, and how we track them. So current status of some of the projects that we have installing on the main line is on the Loop 101 from I-10 to the Cardinals Way. That's been completed. We have Loop 101 I-10 to the 202, an entire 61-mile corridor that has been completed as well. And now we do have focus on the Loop 202, I-10 to I-10, essentially entire 78 corridor, and that is actually in progress, and we continue to expand our projects. So ongoing construction projects themselves. So we do have a DSS system that's within our TOC, and it's a decision support system. We do get real-time video system entries, displayed interactive maps and videos of the events when they do occur. This allows our TOC dispatchers to activate the DMS traffic camera tracking and red light ramp metering itself. So we do have a video that is about a 30-second clip so that we're able to verify within the TOC if it is an actual wrong way. If it is, that's our immediate action is to get dispatch to deploy the DMS signs and to do the ramp meter as well. And then we actually let the TOC, our DPS folks that are stationed within the DPS within our TOC to let them know that there is a wrong way confirmed. So current projects to upgrade. Again, our original effort was on I-17. We did have 90 sites. So our current efforts are adding at other locations. That's going to be over 230 sites. We have a live view that will save 20 seconds than the previous version. So we did do an upgrade within our TOC to a DSS system, which is great. When we're talking wrong way, 20 seconds means a lot. Whenever we're discussing, being able to save lives, and that's what we're doing. DSS will be enabled statewide, active nearby cameras. We wanted to do improve tracking as well, and then expedite DPS information so they can get the information ASAP. We do actually keep track of our wrong way detection numbers as well as system levels. So we do keep track of like the number of incursions that occur, and of those incursions, what are the number of mainline entries that occur. As you could see, for an example, in December of 2024, we had 75 incursions. 7 of those incursions actually entered the mainline. That's 9% essentially. Expansion of the wrong way, excuse me. And then we do keep track of a rolling average system as well. So the yellow line that you'll see on here is, as you can see over the years, we've increased the number of cameras or thermal detection that we have on the wrong way detection. And we're able to see more incursions and more self-corrections, as you can see. So more detection we have, the increased number of detection that we're going to actually see overall. But what's interesting is you can see in the mainline entries that the red line down below is the actual ones that make it to the main line itself. So they're staying pretty stagnant there. And wrong way, we do keep track of the data as well as the corridor level. So we're able to see which corridor has the most wrong way incursions, kind of hotspots, so we can help focus, what's occurring there, why we're having the wrong ways at those locations. For example, we have one of the incursions that we have is on 202 in the Van Buren area there, and that's one of the corridor that we have the most events at. So operation and maintenance considerations. So as you guys are aware, as we put up more cameras, it's going to end up being more maintenance for our folks. That means it's going to be more cameras to clean, more cameras that may or more of the system overall will need maintenance itself. So that's increased monitoring as well for our dispatchers, increased data collection, verification, scrubbing of the reports. And then we want to do continued development of the DSS and incorporate additional locations. And then we actually have standard work for monitoring, verification, and reporting process and training for our staff as well. So in conclusion, ADOT will continue to implement countermeasures to mitigate wrong way detection. The I-17, based off our I-17 pilot project that we had, the test corridor level system, wrong way countermeasures are effective, we feel. Apply lessons learned and enhance system capabilities and safety operational benefits to increased detection and notification. Mr. Chair and members of the TRC board, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ryan and Kevin. Do any members of the committee have any questions or comments on this agenda item?
Hi, Mr. Chair. I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, great presentation. I have a couple of questions. Early in your presentation, you mentioned 109 detected incursions during the pilot. And then later on, you showed a slide that indicated there were 75 in December alone. Not great at math, but does that mean there was only 34 the rest of the year?
No, great question. Thank you for the opportunity to answer that. So during the actual pilot itself, we were able to see the 9 incursions, and that was just only on I-17. But as we increase the number of cameras or detection devices that we have out on the freeway, we're actually going to catch more incursions because we have more detection out there on the roadways themselves. So yes, we will see an increase of incursions and self-correctors because we're able to actually notify these, or we're able to see them. As before, just in the pilot, we didn't have anything outside of like the I-17, so it's I-10. We weren't able to see them. So even though we're showing that the incursions were lower, we weren't able to detect anything outside of I-17 itself. And now that we do have those, we're able to detect. I hope that helps clarify your question there. Great question.
Yeah, sure does. And then secondarily, I know we only have a partial count of incursions, but do we have any sort of concept of how the incursions in the MAG region compare to similarly sized areas around the country? Like, are we seeing a higher prevalence of this issue than other communities, or pretty similar? Do we have any of that kind of data?
That is something I would definitely need to get back to you on. I did not look at the data before the presentations just to see how we compare to other cities or states that are similar to the Phoenix area. But that is something I would be happy to get back to you guys on and be able to answer that question. But that is an excellent question as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does any other members of the committee have any questions of Ryan and Kevin? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 9, update on regional programming guidelines development activities. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Patrick Stone, MAG Deputy Transportation Director for Programming.
Good morning, Chair Wilcox, members of the Transportation Review Committee. Pleasure to present an update on this item. As the Chair noted, this is the regional programming guidelines development activities. So you'll see this slide, we already pivot right away. We're actually talking about the federal fund programming guidelines. Those are the existing policies and procedures that we use to guide projects funded through federal funding suballocated to the region. They were last approved by MAG Regional Council back in June of 2015. Applies to all projects with federal funding suballocated to the region, as I noted. One thing to keep in mind, these don't apply to the life cycle program. So both the arterial, freeway, and transit life cycle programs are not currently covered by these guidelines. So go back a little bit in history. While noting that the guidelines were last approved in 2015, they actually came out of an effort led by Management Committee. They developed a working group to establish these guidelines. And the intent was really kind of twofold. The first was to improve the project development process. They noticed there were challenges with deferrals, agencies having struggles with project development, and of course, always, as we see, and given the point in time, this was done in 2009, cost containment was a significant issue. And then the other thing, I think this was really important, they wanted to provide additional help for member agencies that infrequently come into the federal process, so might not have the knowledge base, and also small agencies that may not have the staffing availability to manage the process as well as we'd like. So in 2011, the first guidelines were actually approved. And it was sort of a overview of a call for projects process. Some member agency responsibilities were identified, but it was a pretty light touch in 2011. Fast forward 4 years to the 2015 that we mentioned earlier, guidelines were significantly expanded. Twofold. One, we had changes in federal legislation. MAP 21 had been approved in that time frame. They wanted to account for new federal funding sources. And then in addition, out of the 2010 census, the MAG region grew to include parts of Pinal County. So policies were updated to again reflect those agencies coming into the process. So why are we here talking about updating the guidelines? Well, as you can see on the screen, there's a linchpin seminal item that has occurred, which is the passage of Proposition 479. Included in that was a real shift in policy of how we fund regional competitive programs. Prior, only a handful of programs that were funded exclusively with federal funds. We now come to today, Prop 479, and we really have a nice blend of federal and regional sales tax funded competitive programs, necessitating the update of these guidelines. And as noted on the bottom, part of the reason of why we went there is to be more efficient and effective with the funds available to the region. So some general items of the guidelines, kind of those things that are going to be holdovers from the previous guidelines into the new space. we're going to just do an update just to take the federal terminology where it said federal only, really make it regional funding. So we're going to use this more as the benchmark. It does not mean sales tax funding. It just means regional fundings, which is sales tax or federal. And also included in your agenda packet today was the existing guidelines. They could use a refresh. They are a bit dated, if you will. I would argue they were dated back in 2015, but we want to clean them up, make them much more easier, a little more graphical, more user-friendly, so that when you have new staff come on board, there'll be a good tool for them to use to understand the process. Secondarily, the guiding principles included in the document, we're going to maintain those. We're really looking at kind of expanding a little bit, but again, using the regional lens focus of how we approach programming funds in the region. Transportation Programming Guidebook, a hallmark of the guidelines. It's included in there. We'll continue to maintain that document. What it really is it's that 1 year look ahead of what we anticipate coming up with more competitive programs coming online. I think this will be quite a tool helpful for agencies. The one thing we're looking to pivot, and you saw it in my program manager's report earlier, we developed those policies and procedures for the 2 new arterial programs. We're really looking to manage those programs within those policies. So they're very specific to those programs, how they operate, how they flow through the committee process, the scoring, all of that. The intent with the regional programming guidelines is more that high level view, that programmatic of this is how we look at regional funding in its totality and how we manage it. So you're going to start seeing that. We will be bringing updates to the committee process over the course of the next year, where we might take the paving unpaved roads program and bring some policies specific to those to this committee for consideration. And then finally, this will continue to be the tool for helping member agencies understand how to modify and manage their projects through our TIP process. So a couple things that changed. This is the big one. So project deferrals. Currently, we have a deferral process in the federal fund programming guidelines. It allows member agencies to make a first deferral without any justification. They just traditionally send an email and say, hey, we need to move a project. If a member agency needs an additional deferral, they then have to come through the committee process, starting at the technical committee and then moving all the way through the policy committee process to document why they need that additional deferral. The issue, it really is what you think it is. Federal funding allocated to the region is use or lose. So if a project moves out of a fiscal year, we have to backfill that funding with something else. I'll illuminate in a minute. It's going to become more of a challenge. So what do we do? So really, MAG staff is recommending that we kind of pivot on the project deferral process and make it a little more modern, maybe. So really where we're going, apologies. Oh, there it goes. First deferrals. Instead of having a first deferral with no justification, our recommendation is that it at least has to go through the technical committee of origin for a justification to provide, hey, why do I need to move this project? The thought is, and you'll see in some of my subsequent slides, we're looking to make the entire project management process much more interactive, intuitive, and the outcome of that should ameliorate needing to do deferrals. These deferrals should become things that are so infrequent that they're almost just unusual to see one come through the process. Second deferral, we don't recommend changing this. If you do need to do a second deferral, it would require the full committee process. And then the guidelines were a little bit nebulous, and here's where we really wanted to make a bit of a pivot, identifying that a third deferral is an actual item. It exists as a thing, but this is going to take another level of work from a member agency. The request must come from a city or town manager or equivalent position. So it won't be staff generated. This will come from that level of official within a member agency. And really we expect it, and the reason why is if we've gotten to a third deferral, the process has broken down and we really want to have a more sincere and substantive discussion about why. So moving on, progress reporting. This is a big component of the existing guidelines. There's 2 sections really that speak to how we manage and maintain projects. Starting off, member agencies, they have a responsibility to submit an agency commitment letter. It's used for 2 purposes. One, hey, acknowledging you understand deadlines when projects need to be submitted, and that you have the resources available to deliver those projects. Those become part of a project status workbook. We would go out twice a year to member agencies and say, hey, here's the projects we show that are federally funded. Tell us how they're doing. It was a bit tedious. It had a lot of steps. I don't know how effective it was. What would then come out of that is we would take those workbooks and then MAG staff would take them, and twice a year we would take it through the committee process. And it was a kind of a reflection of how federally funded projects are doing. Ultimately, these lead into amendments that manage and maintain the program. So pivot. Oh, and yeah, and really, kind of the takeaway is the existing process wasn't very interactive. It was very static. I send you a workbook, you send it back, we record the changes, and we move from there. So the recommendation, a bit more dynamic, if you will. So as I noted before, the member agency did the agency commitment letter. Our recommendation is now we make it a joint process and we do it through an agency coordination meeting. In the last couple of years, MAG staff have been able to, and I think it's been wildly successful. We've gone out to member agencies and talked about all your projects, not just the federal projects, but every project in the tip that we show for your agency. But they're much more engaged, dynamic. We pull up maps. We're talking about actual projects. We have the right staff in the room to say, oh, hey, that's not ready yet, or we have an issue. It's been really collaborative and I think worked well. So again, instead of a project status workbook that the member agency creates, I think we're looking at more, again, of a collaborative thing, developing an agency workbook update. I'll pause here. This is sort of a temporary fix because the next thing I'm going to talk about is going to solve for this. But in the interim, having it, again, be much more cumulative and collaborative of what an agency has. So instead of taking an agency, that project status workbook and becoming a biannual report to committees, we really want to move to an online tool. And we're actually in development of this tool as we speak. And what this is really making an online portal for member agencies to see statuses of their projects, provide updates on their projects. So instead of having this twice a year box checking, hey, here's the report, send it back, very much more intentional that we can manage projects and work with agencies in real time. And then it won't change the amendment process. We anticipate this still being the same. I think we'll have better inputs into this. And what you're really seeing is it's going to be a much more collaborative effort. So what are we going to do with this? Obviously, my conversation with you today is an update on the development of those guidelines. So we'll have that today in March. Moving forward to April, we're going to take any feedback we receive from member agencies through this process, update those guidelines. Myself and Ms. Lauren Marshall, who's been helping me assist in developing these, we'll take those considerations. We already have a draft version of that. We'll put those updates into that. The intent is to bring the draft guidelines back to the committee in April for consideration for approval. And then assuming success there, we would move into the policy committees this May for formal adoption of the regional programming guidelines. With that, Chair Wilcox, members of TRC, that concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Do any members have any questions or comments on this agenda item?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Jason, please go ahead.
Hey, Patrick, this sounds great. This sounds like a really good update. Thank you. I'm really particularly looking forward to the online tool creation. I think a lot of us just received our annual request to update our air quality information from Lavanya. I'm curious if this online tool will help feed into that air quality needs so that that process is a little simplified as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Wilcox, members of TRC, Mr. Hafner. Actually, it's a phenomenal question. I appreciate you offering that up. We have actually been engaged in conversations internally about our air quality process. For those that don't know, because we're a non-attainment area for air quality, we have to demonstrate conformity. We get a finding of conformity, usually once a year, most often now twice a year. We're trying to, with those agency meetings, align that with that air quality update to have them kind of go hand in hand. I think the intent, Wendy Miller, our tip manager, has had conversations with our air quality staff. That's really what they're looking at. They're intending to come to a process, I think, hopefully where the online tool serves many needs. And so for member agencies, it should be kind of a one-stop shop. But yeah, great question. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions from the membership for Patrick on this agenda item?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So Patrick, just want to make sure I understand this right. So you said it's not going to apply to ALCP, FLCP, TLCP. So it's the other programs, the active transportation, competitive, arterial, rehab. So that's kind of a mix of federal and regional funds. So the thought is that the guidelines would apply kind of equally to regional and federal, or is there going to be a distinction in terms of deferrals and other things, given there's different consequences for federal versus regional deferrals?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wilcox, members of TRC, Vice Chair Crampton. Actually, that's a great question, one that we were contemplating even this morning. The intent when we first went through it was like, oh, we'll bifurcate the guidelines and have a regional section, federal section. We really want to move away from that. I think for member agencies, we want to treat projects as projects, regardless of the funding source, but that we manage and maintain them one way. I think it's simpler that way. To your point, well stated, yes, federal funds have a consequence. We're not going to lose any federal funds. Some would argue regional don't have that same emergency, if you will. That being said, we program projects in the years we programmed them because we had expectations of delivering those investments in those years. Hence why we really want to keep them together, because we've made commitments to the taxpayers of this region. Hey, we intend to do this project. So we want to work with the agencies to keep the project successful. But yeah, we want to kind of really keep the policies very similar for both funding types. But yeah, great question. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for that.
Any additional questions for this agenda item? Very good. Thank you, Patrick. Moving on to item number 10, request for future agenda items. Are there any requests from the membership for an item on a future agenda? Hearing none, the next agenda item is comments from the committee. Are there any comments or announcements from the membership? Hearing none, the next meeting of the Transportation Review Committee will be on Thursday, April 24th, 2025 at 10 o'clock a.m. With no further business, today's meeting is adjourned at 10:54 a.m.